Hello there, Wahlburgers. Today we're looking at the Constitutional Convention. We've previously been looking at how the Articles of Confederation government didn't work and why it failed spectacularly. But today we're going to look at how we changed from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution that we have today. So the questions that we have are going to be really at the end of this whole presentation, but we have to know this stuff ahead of time. But we're going to talk about a thing called the Great Compromise, and how is that a good example of a compromise? And also we have the topic of slavery, which isn't going away anytime soon. How did the framers deal with the issue of slavery in the Constitution? So like we said before, with Shays' Rebellion, a lot of people started saying, hey, this government cannot handle the pressures of, governing. We need to make some changes. And so we have this gentleman by the name of James Madison. We'll hear a lot about him later. He organizes this idea, let's all meet in Philadelphia to revise, just slightly change the Articles of Confederation. But it's quickly decided, no, we need to do something drastically different. So there were some simple rules laid out on how this convention was going to work. Each state only had one vote. It didn't matter if they had 5 delegates or 2. Each state got one vote. A simple majority was needed to pass ideas. So again, with 13 states, we're only down to 7 states having to agree for ideas to be accepted. They also swore themselves to complete secrecy. This is in Philadelphia in the middle of summer. You know how summers are in Pennsylvania. They're hot and humid and gross, and they had their windows closed. They were wearing these heavy woolen cloaks and stuff. Yeah, not a great time to be swearing to secrecy. The only reason that we really know what we know about the convention is James Madison kept very, very detailed journals about some of the conversations that were going on in the procedures, but they wanted to keep things secret. If word got out that they were scrapping the articles altogether, people were going to be very, very upset. Also, as a kind of a sign of unity, it was easily decided that George Washington was going to preside, be the president of the of the convention. Not president of the United States yet. That is not a thing. But he is the one kind of in charge, making sure, people speak and blah, 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 all that stuff. So Madison, not only does he organize this convention, but he has this basic idea of government. He had been studying government for a long time. His first thing is, hey, we're going to have 3 branches of government. And we're going to hear a lot about these 3 branches for a while. So I would definitely take notes on this. But in short, we have a legislative branch, which creates the laws. We have the executive branch, which is currently headed by the president, which enforces laws. And we have a judicial branch, which is what interprets the laws. And that's kind of what the Supreme Court does. The details here get kind of iffy, because for Madison, he said, hey, the more people that a state has, the more power you should have. This is a government for the people, so, more people equals more power, right? So he wants a bicameral legislature, so it means 2 houses, and each house was going to be based off of population. Again, the larger your population, the more votes you get in this branch of government. A lot of larger states love this. Okay, we have a lot of people. We get a lot out of this. However, we quickly notice that the small states hate this idea because they don't want to be shafted from, any power themselves. So some representatives from New Jersey decide, hey, this is what our plan is going to be. We call it the New Jersey plan today. But it's unicameral. There would only be 1 house in the legislature, and every state gets the same amount of votes. Just like in our simulation when we're designing a flag, it didn't matter how many people you had, every table had 1 vote. This would be the same idea with the New Jersey plan. But they kept the basic 3 branches of government idea. We also have this contentious issue of slavery. The northern states, some people for moral reasons or just, kind of because they weren't benefiting a lot from slavery. One, they didn't want slaves to be counted towards population because the southern states were making an argument that slaves should be property. Northern states would make a bigger push that slavery should be outlawed altogether. But if we're keeping slavery on the books here, if slaves escape, they should be freed, okay? Again, the whole idea that slavery is kind of immoral. The southern states are going to come back with, hey, no, the slaves should definitely count towards population. So there's going to be an issue there. Slavery should continue, and some people are going to say, hey, yeah, slavery is not necessarily a great thing. However, the southern economy, and then by far the economy of the entire United States, depends on slavery. You take away all that labor, instantly the economy is going to be rocked. For a new country, that's going to be a bad deal. Finally, slaves would be considered as property, and if they escape and are captured, they should return to their masters here. So here we have two big issues. One is the issue of slavery. Does it remain? How do we enforce it? And two, how are states represented in this brand new government? So we need to talk about compromise. And I think we all have a good idea of what a compromise is. But if we're looking for a dictionary definition, compromise, an agreement of settlement of dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. Both sides don't get everything they want. They maybe lose a little bit, but together they have an agreement. So we have several compromises here that make the Constitution actually happen. The first one we consider the Great Compromise, otherwise known as the Connecticut Compromise, because the representative who proposed it is from Connecticut. But again, we go back to this idea of three branches of government: legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. But we have a bicameral legislature. There are two houses of Congress. One house, every state has the same amount of votes, specifically 2 votes. And this is the Senate today. All right, Pennsylvania has 2 senators, California has 2 senators, Rhode Island has 2 senators. The other house is based on population. Again, the more people you have, the more representatives you have. And that's the House of Representatives today. So, for example, Pennsylvania has 18 representatives in the House of Reps. California, being our most populous state, has 53 representatives. And then a state like Wyoming, where there's not a lot of people, only has 1 representative. When it comes to the issue of slavery, however, things get a little bit more complex. And what we get is what we call the 3/5 compromise. Again, the northern states didn't want to count slaves towards population, because that would mean the southern states didn't get more power. But the southern states did want to count them, again, getting more power that way. So they went back and forth with this. 1/2 wouldn't work, or anything like that. So we come up with this 3/5 compromise. And why specifically 3/5? That's not important. But the basic idea is this: 3/5 of the population of slaves would count towards a state's population. So, for example, if a state has 5,000 slaves, 3,000 would be added to that total state's population. Finally, the whole issue of the slave trade itself, in the Constitution it says that Congress is not going to interfere with the slave trade for 20 years, and thus beginning Congress's great ability to kick problems down the road later for people to deal with. So with that being said, that's the basic framework of what goes on in our government. We'll look next week specifically what some of these different parts are and what do they do. But there we go. That's kind of why we have the government that we have today.